Hello, everybody. It looks like we are live. Welcome to our second installment of our Business Professionals and Leaders Diversity Networking event here at North Central Texas College. If you tuned in last night, you got to see great conversation from veteran business leaders. Tonight, we're going to have LGBTQ plus business professionals sharing their experiences with you all. I guess I should also probably introduce myself before I get too far into things. I'm Austin Cresswell. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the facility coordinator at the Visual and Performing Arts Department here at NCTC, as well as the chair of our Pride Education Advocacy and Knowledge, LGBTQ plus employee resource group, and a part of our LGBTQ plus affinity group, and the advisor for our Spectrum Alliance LGBTQ plus student group. If you want to know anything about that, especially our affinity groups where you can get support from faculty and staff members, Liz will put that link to our affinity group pages in the chat. Anywho, welcome to our LGBTQ plus business professionals panel. Just to plug before we get too far into it, next week, the series will continue. On Tuesday, November 13th, we'll have Latinx business leaders and professionals. And then Wednesday, April 14th, we will have Black, African American, and African descent business leaders and professionals. We welcome you all here today to hear some great experiences from these business leaders. But before we get too far into that, I'll let Lori Logan from NCTC Small Business Development Center introduce herself and tell us about what she does here at NCTC.
Awesome. Austin, thank you so much. And thank you all for including me. I always welcome the opportunity to share information about the Small Business Development Center. My name is Lori Logan. I am the director of the Small Business Development Center located at North Central Texas College that serves as our host. The Small Business Development Center is a grant-funded organization. We have over 1,000 offices in the United States. And we are also supported by, the SBA through Washington, D.C., the state of Texas, our regional office in Dallas. And of that, there are 4 host SBDCs, and us being at North Central Texas College, we serve Denton, Montague, and Cook counties. All of our resources are provided at no cost. They are confidential and customized that every small business owner needs. We help people who want to start a small business, grow a small business, save a failing business, access to capital, anything at all to do with a small business. We're here to help you. We have experts in the field. They are professionals. They all have degrees and business-related degrees and have been small business owners. So honestly, they feel the pains, they understand the pains, but they do celebrate the gains as well. So we do have a lot of experts in the field. I'm going to share with you, with your permission, I'm going to share with you our website, just give you a quick tour and show you some of the resources available, as well as how to contact us and how to make an appointment. Right. So again, we are part of North Central Texas College, and this is our homepage for the Small Business Development Center. And we have resources here of talking about the pandemic and resources available there for small businesses. Here are some related events of who we are and what we do, training that's available. We have, and I will show you a list of our training that we have coming up, but we have a variety of training classes that are, again, no cost to anyone, whether you're in the service area or outside the service area. Participate. They are live and opportunities for question and answers. We also have some quick links to resource partners. That includes anything that a small business owner would need to be privy to, the IRS, Small Business Administration, SBA forms, the things that we like to talk about or not necessarily like to talk about, but resources that a small business owner would need. We are hiring. We do have a couple of positions open. If you have business ownership experience and have a business-related degree, we welcome your application. It is a very fun job, and certainly we're here to serve others and help them be successful. But on down the page, we have our contact information. Again, we serve the Denton, Montague, and Cook counties. We have satellite offices. We've established one in Bowie at the NCTC Bowie campus. We have an office in Gainesville. We have an office at the Chamber of Commerce in Denton. over in Corinth at Point Bank, in Louisville, and honestly, we will meet you wherever you are. At the moment, we are primarily only seeing clients virtually or over the phone, but we're able to meet them wherever they are and provide what they need. Again, a little bit of information about the advising and training that we do. And to make an appointment, whether you want to call us or you could do an online appointment scheduler here, someone will call you back within 24 hours to schedule that no cost, confidential, and customized advising. So we get to, and it's so exciting for us because we learn a lot from you as business owners, and then we help you to be successful. But just a quick tour, I'm going to take you to our training page, and this is a link, actually right there. So this is a link to our Eventbrite page, and you can see all the various schedules of our upcoming webinars. Again, no cost. And one good thing about being virtually and offering these as webinars, we're able to get experts in the field from all over the country that can do a presentation. We have one of the big topics is the Paycheck Protection Program, also all the SBA products that we have someone that's an expert in the field that helps with the application, understanding the eligibility, how to complete that, how to do the forgiveness, and what documents they're needing. Explain that. We can help with all of that through the webinars as well as business advising. We do have a retail reality series for those in the retail business, restaurant reality series for those in the restaurant business. We have quite a bit of social media and website type seminars, quite a few here. And we do have some legal topics that are coming up, as well as, growing your business, presentations, business plans. We have a variety of topics that we're always happy to share. So share that, visit our website, register for those, participate, share it with others. We welcome that. We have recently, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, I think. We have recently hired several new recovery advisors that we're so thankful to have, because we've had so many new clients come in, but they have all been business owners. They are out in the field. They're out in the underserved markets and in the Denton area as well to help the small business owners. We offer certainly mainly for those to opportunities and options to pivot their business so that they can survive. This climate has been very different. So we help with those applications for those grants as well as pivoting maybe their business operations, looking at their cash flow, and just helping, save jobs. So everything we do, again, is confidential. We are always excited and happy to serve others and answer any questions you may have. So visit us. Our website is svdc.nctc.edu. Again, my name is Lori, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Lori. What an amazing resource that NCTC has to offer, and thank you for representing it so well. That was great. Very much appreciate it. So now, if we could have our lovely panelists go through and just introduce yourself and share what you do in your career, maybe a little bit how you got started in that career or when you got started in that career, and then we'll get started with some questions. Katie, do you want to start us off?
Sure, Austin. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Chernyshevsky. I use she, her pronouns. I work in the higher education field. I actually previously worked at NCTC, but now I am a student success advisor for a company called 2U, and 2U partners with universities to bring master's and other graduate programs online so that students across the country can access a variety of universities. So I work primarily directly with students, connecting them with resources and coaching them towards their success.
Very cool. Very cool. Amy?
Yeah, hi. My name is Amy Tanos. I use she, her pronouns as well. I am currently a licensed professional counselor. I actually started as a teacher. My first career was teaching and did that for about 11 years. Went back in my 30s to get my master's degree and decided I wanted to be a therapist. Knew that I liked talking to the kids about their stuff more than I liked trying to teach them math, actually. So went back to school and about 2009 got my license and started a private practice and have been working private practice counseling for however many years that makes it, 12 years? and love it. Absolutely love what I do. So.
Very cool. Very cool. And Justin? You're muted, Justin.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks, Austin.
That's all right. Yeah.
So, hello, I'm Justin Silk. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a senior general accountant at a truck part manufacturing plant, and we make parts for Peterbilt. So I got started actually in a nonprofit at United Way in Gainesville, and went to UNT and did fixed asset accounting there before I moved on to Dynacraft, and actually got my MBA and then moved on to Dynacraft and got started in accounts payable, and just got promoted back into a general role with fixed assets. So happy to be out of accounts payable.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Thank you all. And thank you all for being here and agreeing to be a part of our panel. Let's go ahead and dive into some questions. So our first question of today is going to be, what are some personal characteristics or traits that you believe have helped you the most in your professional success in each of your careers, or just leading up to the point that you're at now? Anybody want to take a stab at that and start us off?
I'll go ahead. I'll go with I just go with my gut. I guess what pops in my head every time you say that is, I think, or I'd like to think, I think compassion for others and an interest in, it translates in a couple different ways. As a counselor, I talk to people all the time about, like, our greatest strength is actually our biggest weakness. So wanting to fix things and help others is a good quality, and it also can be a little bit much. So we have to find balance in that. But I think that's probably the quality that both might drive people nuts sometimes in me, but is actually what helps me to be a good counselor, and I think drove me to want to be a counselor.
Do you find that compassion in your counseling endeavors, does that, how often are you having to kind of put that back on yourself and extend that own compassion to yourself? Is that something that helps or hinders?
That's, it's one of those things that, it's funny because I have clients sometimes that are counselors, and so we'll talk a lot, and they'll say, I know all these things, why am I not doing it myself? And so that's true of all of us. But yeah, absolutely, especially in this last year, I think it's been an interesting year. The thing I say as far as my profession goes is, we're not usually going through the same thing our clients are going through at the same time. And so experiencing the pandemic at the same time and trying to process it myself while I'm also helping clients process and deal with it has been a real challenge. So yeah, I've done a lot more self-care, especially in the last year, and having compassion for myself. And just having to take care of myself as well, more so than I think I ever did before that. So yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Katie or Justin, what about y'all's personal characteristics that you define as helping you the most in your professional success?
Well, I guess I'll go. I think organization. Not to say that I'm always organized in my personal life or finances or home or anything like that, but being able to, as an accountant, and then anytime you're working with money or numbers, just understand what's going on, be able to prioritize, deadlines, things like that. So
I would have to imagine that, especially while you were in accounts payable or while you were working at United Way, dealing with donors, dealing with the multitude of different things that are there, you're having to stay organized and having to maintain that level of organization in order to do your job effectively.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that, can be developed and worked on over time. I would not say I've always been the most organized person, but I think the trait or the characteristic that I want to be is there, that my thoughts may be organized, but
Execution. Depends on the day, right? That's what I say. I'm like, depends on the day. Katie, what about for yourself?
I love that, Justin. Mine is a little bit different, but also something that I think is just built and developed over time. I would say just building self-confidence in my identity and my abilities as a professional over time. The more confidence or just willingness to kind of reach out and seize opportunities that I took advantage of, the more opportunities presented themselves. So like job opportunities, committees, just friendships, getting to know Austin at NCTC when I was there. Like all of those things happened because I was confident enough in myself and what I was doing to try to reach for something new. And that's also something that I take in coaching students. You know, we can feel nervous or uncomfortable, but we have to kind of grow past that and either find some confidence or at least pretend to have some confidence until you actually do have some confidence.
Yeah. I mean, all three of those traits, you know, the confidence within yourself, the compassion, and organization, to me, are three key things for any leader. And then relating it back to anyone within the LGBTQ plus field, you know, confidence is something that for anyone that may not come out until adulthood or may not be super visibly represented until their adulthood, that confidence is something that may be lacking. And in turn, there's the compassion that may or may not be able to be extended to yourself. Whereas I know personally for myself, oftentimes I'm like, I am so wanting to be compassionate for others and make sure that everyone around me is feeling that safe and that compassion. But then that's why I asked you. I mean, I was like, turning that back in on yourself and using that compassion to yourself to help elevate your own professional career, to me, also goes hand in hand with the confidence. And then when you're organized on top of all of that, oh man, that's just a triple threat right there. That's great. Thank you all for sharing your personal traits there. On to the next question. Justin, I'll let you kind of take a stab at this first. What resources or external influences have helped you kind of propel into, you know, you said you're a senior general accountant and you're just gotten a promotion. What are some of those resources or external influences that have helped you get into those roles and propel you into that success?
I think, you know, at the risk of sounding cliche, I'd say education. I think I went to a public school. I got a great education there. I always thought I was a math and science person, but I was the only like AP advanced classes they had were in English. So it forced me to do something I wasn't comfortable with. And, you know, I went on to took advantage of other educational opportunities, went to, you know, a private undergrad, which I actually dropped out of, but years later was able to go back. So, and then getting my MBA just really, you know, kind of taught me how to think and how to learn and be teachable, you know, which I think is very important in the workplace, that you can.
For sure. What, if you don't mind me asking, was there a particular reason that you had dropped out, and what is something that brought you back into the education realm, made you decide to come back in?
Yeah. So, well, I didn't want to necessarily like take over the topic or change the topic, but I actually had an alcohol addiction, and so for many years I, you know, struggled with that, and it did drop out of Tulane University in my senior year. And 15 years later, I was able to contact someone at the university, reinstate my credits, take 2 classes at UNT, and end up with a finance degree and a minor in accounting. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, thank you for taking the opportunity to be vulnerable and share that, Justin. I very much appreciate that. And kudos to you for continuing on with your education, and look at where you're at now. That's amazing. And kudos to the external resource and external influence that helped get you that degree. Katie,
Yes.
what about you? Any resources or external influences helping you become successful in your career?
I think a couple of things. So education. I did go back and get my master's in higher education a few years ago. And same thing, it really just helped me with like critical thinking and understanding the systems in place in higher education, sort of from a broad perspective. But I think it also, it doesn't always need to be that formal. I mean, I took a significant break between undergrad and my master's to have some jobs and experience some things. And I just recommend, like, especially right now, webinars, like readings, discussions, all these things that we might see, which I didn't realize as I was thinking about this, but is also a plug for this event happening right now. But like all of these things are opportunities to connect with people, learn about different resources, and maybe learn about something that you don't know anything about. I think just if you see a topic, at your current place of employment or wherever, and you're like, that sounds cool, but I don't know anything about it, just try to learn one thing about it because it might be a door to some sort of opportunity. And then beyond that, just like volunteer for something in your community, like join a committee, get involved in something. Um, Sometimes it's not the formal kind of paths that we think of. And often it's not those formal paths that necessarily lead to a job. It's just like knowing someone through someone.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. Those get involved things. I mean, that's I would have never met Katie had we not been involved in within Peak while she was here and within the resources that NCTC has to offer. And it reminds me of Katie, something you said, just taking a stab at something that you don't know. I had a professor in college that told us, if you start to read about a topic for 30 minutes every day, eventually you'll be an expert. And that's the same with the multitude of resources that are out there, webinars, things like that. Like, just learn about them, seek them out, learn about them. That's wonderful. Thanks, Katie. Amy, what about you? Any external resources or influences that helped you?
I mean, certainly, like everybody said, I think obviously education. I too took a break. I did my, got my teaching credential and stuff, came out of high school and thought, okay, I think this is maybe what I wanted to do. And actually kind of battled between that and probably counseling at the time, but I was young and I was like, I don't want to get my master's degree right now. That's a lot of school. And so I was like, teaching, that's a good option too. And did that for a while and it was good until it wasn't anymore. And, so I went back to get my master's, and that obviously makes a difference. But as you ask that question, I think kind of what pops into my mind is people, just a lot of personal resources. So between even my students when I was teaching, the sixth graders that I'd be like, they'd act up in class, and I'd be like, come on, let's go talk. And we'd go literally sit in the hall on the floor and talk. And I was like, oh, this feels better. I like this. This feels right. So even that kind of stuff, really kind of, I just listened to it, I guess. I just started realizing like this, I'd rather do this. And it wasn't even just with kids. I don't want to work solely with teenagers, but so I think between that and then just, personal influences, other people, once I got into education, I mean, these relationships like with Daphne, I have built, a great set of relationships, even through my master's program, that have continued to support me and inspire me. And then as I got into private practice, I think about conferences, TCA, Texas Counseling Association, American Counseling Association conferences were really big, especially early on. At one point I started, I had always wanted to start an LGBT group for teens, and finally just did it because I hate the business side. I'm going to be honest. I hate the business side of my job, but I do it. And so like marketing for a group is like, I hated that idea. And finally I was just like, I'm just going to, like, if you build it, they will come. And so I just opened a group with 3 kids that I was already seeing. They showed up and it just built. And so again, like you talk about just listening, like these opportunities. I expected a lot of LGBs to come through my door, and pretty much I got all T's coming through my door. And at this point, this was years ago, kind of new even in the public eye, kind of a different topic. So I was comfortable with it as far as my personal outlook on it, but I wasn't educated in it as a therapist. And so then I started going to HRC's Time to Thrive conferences. So that, just facilitated a lot of growth for me. And then, of course, learning from my clients, especially things like that. I mean, walking with these kids for about 5 years. I mean, you can't learn much more from people than you can from people.
Yeah, that lived experience and sharing that experience, so that's important. And I mean, the connection that you talk about, like that external connection, as humans in general, we thrive on that. We thrive on, we are not solitary people. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the LGBTQ plus community is often with stigmas, with just stereotypes around, we're yearning for that connection, and we find it within each other, and that's a really beautiful thing. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
And a community and resource that's created like that, Amy, that's kudos to you, because that's amazing, especially doing it at a time when it wasn't as talked about or as widely known about. And again, kudos to you for educating yourself on something and realizing, hey, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to educate about it. That's very, very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So next question, what are some professional challenges that you faced within your careers while being a part of the LGBTQ community? And if you don't mind expanding, how did you overcome them personally within an office or anything like that? Katie, let's start with you.
Great. So I was just unmuting myself. Well done. I was going to say I am privileged in that I can essentially, in most circles, pass for straight. So I do have that that privilege, like I said. So a lot of the things that I would consider challenges as a professional are sort of like microaggressions and smaller things, just like being nervous about sharing about my personal life at work, being asked like questions about who I was dating, just like casual work talk, and not knowing how safe a space it was, just, in various jobs over time. And I think there's kind of two approaches you can take to this, and I've done both. You can do the kind of like start small until you feel safe, like dip a little toe in, test the waters, see if you can find an ally, or you can kind of like dive all in from the beginning. And my most recent job, I basically from day one was like, oh, well, at my past job, I was involved in this committee for LGBTQ plus issues. Like, what exists like that here? Because I just decided I didn't want to live in an environment, 9 to 5 every day where I wasn't certain that I could feel comfortable. Of course, that takes privilege too, to be able to even make that call. But yeah, I think just like I said, kind of doing your research, finding allies, building a community around you so that you feel supported.
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's you and I work together here at NCTC, and I've only been in my full-time role for, it'll be 2 years in July, and I mean, I definitely think I took the latter approach and just kind of dove in, and it's pretty cool to work at a place that does support and is doing so much and has created so much over the last year to really support and bolster the representation and the visibility of the LGBTQ plus community. And I found more often than not that, and I think it's something that those of us within the community feel often, is that fear of retribution and that fear of, oh, if I say something, what's going to happen? And it's that deep breath of, now who do I disclose to, who do I not disclose to, and all of that. And it's I find more often than not, and it is definitely a privilege that I have working at the wonderful institution that I do, is more often than not, the more open and honest I am with myself, that confidence that you were talking about earlier, Katie, the more open and honest I'm able to be in meetings, in my job, and it makes my job productivity better. Because when you're having to go 9 to 5 and you're not able to be yourself, what's the point? We want people to be themselves and embrace that diversity. Justin, do you have anything that you have as part of professional challenges?
Sure. So I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is when I started with United Way, I was, very aware that I was in a conservative community. And I really had this feeling like I don't want to be responsible for someone not making a donation to a good cause. So I created a whole separate Facebook page, to have this public persona, and I think, I feel, I don't know, at the time, I think I made the right decision. Again, I didn't, I would not want to be held responsible if some ultra conservative person were to say, oh, well, he, United Way employs gay people, so I don't want to donate to them. But what I learned from that is that I did not want to work in that type of environment anymore. Yeah. And so at my next position, I was a little bit more open, starting off. And I think that was really kind of what the key is, that I didn't hide anything. I didn't come out, run in with my pride flag and, announce to everybody, hey, I'm here. If they asked or if something came up, I made sure to say, yes, my husband and I do that, or, but it took practice. It really did, because it was uncomfortable and scary at first to say, yeah, my partner or my, so
there's so much stigma still around it, and that's why things like this are that normalize the conversation, that normalize our existence within our professional spaces. And we have 4 people here who are successful in our careers, and we are doing things to represent ourselves while still being successful in our careers. And to touch on a more personal note, Justin, because you worked at United Way with my mom, we first met, I think I was still in high school when we first met. And for me, there was this, I obviously knew you on a more personal level, you being a coworker with my mom. And there was an aspect of feeling comfort in that representation and feeling that, hey, here is a person that is like me. And at the time, I wasn't out to myself even. And but there was still this amount of comfort that I was like, hey, here's a person that is successful and doing something to better their lives and existing in a way that is cool. And I think it was really when I came on to help organize the panel, I was like, Mom, I need Justin's number because I want to call him and get him on this, because it's a very cool thing. And it embodies more to me how much the representation matters and that connection matters within community. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of each other's journey.
Well, I definitely got to hear all about yours.
I am sure. I am most certainly sure. And I did want to ask you, what are some of those small ways that you're keeping that in practice of, saying my husband, or what are some of those things that you keep yourself in practice of being a little bit more visible in to create that job environment that you want?
I think it's really just being kind of comfortable with myself, but every time I say it or practice it, it becomes easier. And I find the most, I get that little anxiety kind of build up when somebody's talking about their family, their vacation, their, what they did on the weekend with their loved ones. And I want to say, we just vaguely, went out to a movie and had dinner, or went to Cancun on vacation. And I really have to practice and intentionally say, oh, well, my husband, Tom, and I, went to Cancun and we had a great time and we did that, you know, and talk about my life like it is normal, because it is.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly right. That's the simple fact of the matter is our lives are normal because they're our lives. That's very cool.
And what, I mean, I don't know if we're at this point, but it's kind of odd that we got married during the pandemic. So, you know, the workplace would do things like send around cards and
Yeah,
give gifts and collect money for gift cards for people's baby showers and birthdays and all kinds of things. And so I forgive a little bit of that because it's during the pandemic and none of us were in the office. But you know, nobody really ever acknowledged when I got married. I didn't send out a mass email, but my boss knew. So it was kind of a little disheartening there.
Yeah. Well, here's an acknowledgement from us. Congratulations on getting married. That's very exciting. Very much so. Congratulations to y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it is the weirdness of the pandemic, but it is that is a hurtful thing to to be looked over. You know, one of the things you touched on talking about is the nuances of being in a workplace surrounded by people outside the LGBTQ plus community, talking about their own life experiences with no malintent. But there is something that I find as I get older, I'm like, I'm a person that I want to, you know, be successful and have a family and all of that. And in the workplace, often that's water station talk or whatever. And that is something that does affect the workplace in a way. And by no means am I suggesting people not talk and share about their lives, but it does mean that we do have that added aspect of intentionally talking about our lives in the same way and normalizing them. So kudos to you for that, and very many kudos to you and Tom for getting married. That's very exciting.
Thank you.
But yeah. Amy, what about you? What are some professional challenges that you faced?
You know, it's interesting because I do have both careers. And, you know, this current career is more of a business career, obviously, but it's the kind of contrast of the two. Like, so teaching was always interesting because I dove into, I would go into interviews. I had 3 interviews as a teacher, and all 3 of them I was like, so I'm got a partner. At the time we weren't able to be married, so I have a female partner and we have 2 kids, and so there's that. And I would literally, you know, just interviewing for a teaching job because I was just like, I just needed my principal to know I don't want to be hired somewhere that can't handle that. So I was always able to be out with principals, and I got hired, by the way, so that I did get the jobs, which was nice. It was affirming. And so I was always able to be out with staff. People, the coworkers always knew. I was never hiding that. But I was never, so I taught 6th grade, and this was back, I think I stopped teaching in about 2005-06. I was never out with my kids. And honestly, I mean, if you can as an adult, which I know you can, I was bullied for it. I mean, I had my students, you know, writing Miss Tanos is a lesbian on the playground. And I had one stand up we had a women's center speaker in our class. And so I was sitting at my desk while the speaker was teaching the class. And I had one student and I don't even remember all the things that he said, but he kept looking at me and he'd be like, what if you suspect that your teacher might be a lesbian and blah, 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 blah. And he just kept going on. And I got up and had to leave the room. Now, having said that, I too have been very privileged overall, though. Like, those were some pretty hard moments. I couldn't address it. I never got to address it with that kid in class. Never got to address the writing on the playground. If it were today, I might do it differently. I think I'm a different person and hopefully times are different, but never got to address that. So that was really hard in those settings. When I transitioned into counseling, that was one of the things that I was so excited about and so loved I didn't even work in a clinic ever. So I've always been my own boss. So nobody got to tell me whether I could be out or not. And so I was out. I mean, as is appropriate with clients, just the same, like if you go to a counselor and your counselor might say, oh, my husband and I went on vacation, or, well, you know, I'm going on vacation with my husband or whatever. I do that. I also have all over my website that I work with LGBT people and whatever. So my clients tend to be pretty open anyways, but it's nice. When I go to professional, conferences and things like that, I'm not afraid to be out. It's much more accepting environment anyways. I had one incident, and again, this was quite a few years ago at a Texas Counseling Association conference. They have booths and set up at conferences that, share their information, schools and organizations. And there was an organization set up a booth at this one, and they were basically about conversion therapy. And I remember walking around the booths, and I walked up to that one and personally just was flooded with, I just broke down. I remember just, being livid and being just felt unsafe all of a sudden in the space that I had been safe in. The counseling is my safe space.
Yeah.
And thankfully, the organizers, I went and said, hey, what is going on? What is this booth doing here? And the organizers were like, we didn't know, like, that's not okay. And so they dealt with it. I don't remember the situation and how they got in there, what happened, but they did deal with it. So I was glad that the organization stood up and helped me to feel safe in that space. But that was a rough one, because again, counseling had become like, okay, this is my space. I don't have to be unsafe here.
Wow.
So that was a blow. But I'll say that again, I will reiterate. I'm lucky and privileged and get to do what I love and be out and have been fairly accepted in most other ways. So
in general, Amy, what do you think the biggest challenge in your field is in this day and age? I have to imagine it would be something with the different ideas around LGBTQ communities and identities.
Yeah, I think, most every professional organization that's, pretty well respected is going to support and affirm LGBTQ lives. But there are absolutely, I get clients sometimes, they'll say, well, I was with a Christian counselor who, said this or did this. So sometimes it comes from a religious space. Not always, there are absolutely people out there that connect to religion and also support the LGBTQ community. And so, but that can be a pretty rough area for LGBTQ individuals to navigate. And then, because there's conversion therapy. I have young people that'll say, my parents, took me to this therapist, and, they basically were, telling me that I needed to change and be different or whatever. And so I think that's a challenge, but it's interesting. So I think just like in any profession, that seems more almost like an individual level, like professionally, the top of the line, the people that, like I said, the professional organizations that are really well respected in the field have a pretty strong stance about that kind of stuff. So I'm thankful for that too. Real thankful for that. So, but yeah, I think that's for LGBTQ people that can be really hard. Or finding, I'm thankful to have gotten the education. Like, first of all, I love that I got to work with all those kids and learn about, just gender differences. I'm still learning. I'm still figuring it out. But there's so much in that gives the opportunity to kind of grow and learn. And a lot of these people, clients, kids come to me, and I'm sort of sad because they'll be like, I can't find anybody else that really gets it. And not that there are lots of people. There are definitely some that I know, but it's hard, like in Denton. My office technically is in Denton, although I don't work there right now. But they'll have a hard time. And I know there are definitely at least a handful of people. And there are a lot of people that are comfortable with it like me, but maybe don't have as much experience in it. So I wish there were also just more people, more trainings for this. And it's becoming more and more a thing. I could go to any conference, they're going to have LGBTQ panels and LGBTQ sessions. So I'm super thankful. But again, just more education, more understanding, I think is important. So
very cool. Katie, what about you? What about in higher ed and advising? What are some of the big challenges in your field? And do those differ for someone within the LGBTQ plus community?
I think honestly very similar to what Amy said. I wrote down two things, and one was like what I called the knowledge gap between generations or just different communities. I agree. I think there's a lot of great things happening in higher education, but often, it's people of the LGBTQ plus community doing the work, and I think that we need others to help share the load. So I think that's a big thing. And then of course you've got, just the safety of students in general. I mean, the Equality Act may have passed in 2020 for certain things, but you still got lots of students in lots of locations around the country and world that feel unsafe, or that maybe, students of color or trans students, communities that like the four of us don't necessarily represent, that have additional just challenges and oppressions to come up against.
Yep. Very
I don't know
cool.
if that made
Justin?
sense.
No, that most definitely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Justin, what about for you? Some big challenges in the field of accounting, and how do you navigate those, or does it differ for someone within the LGBTQ plus community?
I think accounting, business, finance, all of those types of fields in general, especially at the higher levels of management, have old white males in charge and in leadership. And you see probably some token people of color and women up there too. Excuse me, I should not minimize that they are not qualified or imply that at all, but you just don't see it as often in a field of 10 executives. There's one woman and one Black person, and it's kind of like, well, okay, but it's also a little odd that you see so much diversity at the lower levels. It's almost kind of like, oh, they want to underpay us and over diversify at these levels to make it look like they're making an effort, but really it's not always seen up through the ranks of management. And if you're interested in climbing those ranks or being paid a decent wage, then it's kind of, you see people promoted that are younger white males, and I of course definitely recognize my privilege, but
is there, like Katie had mentioned earlier, an aspect of the ability to pass it straight and pass and be passing within your workplace? Is there some aspect of that LGBTQ plus people or yourself are having to navigate in forcing yourself to pass in order to gain those? Or
I think there's possibly some. I don't know how well I pass, but going in the first day, obviously I'm not going to be introducing myself to the CEO in a feminine manner. I'm definitely going to butch it up. Hello, sir. Nice to meet you. So happy to be here. Grateful for this opportunity.
Have you seen LGBTQ plus representation in your field, and in the higher up executives, outside yourself?
Really not. In my personal experience, I haven't. Other than that, I just, mine, I can't say that I'm had lots of jobs or positions, but, I don't see that many, LGBTQ plus anywhere in my field.
Yeah. That's
at the base levels. I see lots of people of color, women, and I think sometimes they underpay the entry level positions because maybe there is a husband for a woman, that they can afford to pay them less, or that they would accept a job paying less. I see even some people in different workplaces that I've been in, that English is not their first language. And I'm like, oh, they are stuck in this position and they're probably not going to get a promotion because they don't communicate well enough. Not that they're not a capable accountant. and they're probably not making enough, but they've got kids at home, and so it's just unfortunate. And
touching on so many nuances of,
yeah.
of the intersectional experiences there, Justin. And I mean, it's unfortunate that you don't see more LGBTQ plus representation in the business world and in the finance world. I hope that those small steps to be more intentional with your own identity. I hope more people. I implore anyone to continue to take those steps and be as open and honest as you can. Represent yourself whenever, because you can do that and be successful. And I hope that we're coming to new times where people are allowed and feel capable of having that openness within their workplace, just as much as our heterosexual counterparts. But yeah, Katie, what about you? Have you seen LGBTQ plus representation within higher ed?
Yeah, I think higher ed. Again, I'm not in K-12 education anymore, although I did kind of start there. So some of it is just that, like Amy was touching on, this was, years ago and things may have changed, but I definitely sensed that same sort of closed offness in the K-12 world. There's still that stigma that, if you're a member of our community, that you're somehow indoctrinating these children in an inappropriate way, which is unfair and untrue, but I definitely just felt that as a young person in the field. And I think since coming into higher ed, I have been fortunate to see a lot more representation and a lot more growth in that area. And at my new job, my current job, it's a large company of staff of like 6,000 across various offices across the US and also Cape Town, South Africa. And because of that, I've seen a lot more representation just across the board within our community. And it's been really nice. One of the perks of a larger company, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's amazing. And so what was it like, starting out in higher ed? And you said that you've tried both approaches of the diving in head first and the taking it easy, testing out the waters. What was it like when you first came across, oh, I'm finding these allies, finding these people that I can disclose to? What was that experience like?
Yeah. I feel like it took me in general around like 2 years into coming into higher ed to really just kind of come out and like fully myself. Granted, when I was new to higher ed, I was also new to living in this area, so I was also figuring that out, trying to establish like what was a stereotype and then what was potentially an accurate idea. It was tricky. Like I feel like I did just do that thing where I would like maybe just mention something related to the LGBT community, but not specifically personal. I'm trying to remember who like the first person really that I encountered in higher ed specifically was of the LGBT community. I can't really remember. And I mean, honestly, until either like grad school, meeting people that worked at other institutions
Yep.
and or larger institutions, things like that.
Very cool. Very cool. And then Amy, you said you've been a leader in your own practice for a while. But was there, when you were in K through 12 education, were you seeing LGBTQ plus representation in your colleagues around you, or were you a part of the main minority there?
No. I mean, unfortunately, yeah, I know. I mean, for the bulk of I'm trying to even think back to that time. There's one, let's be stereotypical, PE teacher who I knew was probably LGBT at the time, and at the time was not aware of it themselves. But anyways, and later had figured that out. But for the bulk of my teaching, no, I mean, I was pretty much the only one. I mean, I spent the bulk of my teaching. I taught in Texas. I mean, in California first. So a lot of my teaching years were in California before 2000. But in Texas, I spent several years at the same school, and I was the only LGBT person there. Oh, that's not true. There was a person in administration who also was, I mean, not even out to me. And I again found out later after I left that I was, yes, right. I mean, it was not, sorry, but stereotypically it was not hard to tell. And I suspected it my whole time there, but never, even though I was out, never came out to me, never was out to anybody there. So yeah, I mean, in essence, I definitely felt very alone in that. I mean, I had supportive teammates and stuff though, thankfully. Yeah. But yeah, it's a pretty lonely place to be in teaching, right? Even still, I think I work with some teachers, and I think it's a pretty rough profession, at least here in Texas, to be LGBTQ.
Yeah. And so, like, what are, and anyone can take a stab at this, what are some ways that, you know, if I'm a new LGBTQ plus professional coming into any given career, what are the ways that they can prepare themselves to be successful? I mean, I'm hearing a lot of us talking about finding that community and that being a really good driving factor of success. What are some tips that y'all could offer in finding community within your workplaces?
I want to jump in here real quick, because I think what Katie said at the beginning is really important, that self-confidence. The more you can accept yourself, and that's hard. I'm not trying to throw that out there like, just accept yourself, you know, just do it. But the more you can have self-acceptance. I remember when I first came out, and trust me, it was a messy process. And I was in my late 20s when I figured myself out and came out. And I remember my mom, I don't know what the conversation was we were having, but I remember she said to me, well, other people are accepting. I think I maybe made a comment about how I was so surprised that, you know, people were accepting me, or people were being okay with me, or something to that effect. And she said, you know, that's because you accept yourself. She said, you walk in and you have confidence in who you are, and you know who you are, and it makes it easier for other people to feel comfortable with you, even if they're not. And, you know, and I don't know that it's simple, it's simple, but or maybe I always say it is simple, but it's not easy. I think that's a simple thought. That's
on paper, it's simple.
Yeah, I think that's a truth, but it's not an easy thing for us to do. But I do think it's important to really do whatever you can to control what's going on here. Here's my counselor side. Like, all we can do is control us. We cannot control what other people think, how they feel, how they perceive us. But we can, you know, really build our own confidence, our own self-love, our own self-acceptance. And I do think it does make at least some difference when we go out into the world and into the workplace. So I don't think we should have to work that hard, and it kind of pisses me off to give that kind of advice sometimes, but I think it's also true.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Katie or Justin, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I'll kind of jump in. I'll definitely agree with Amy on that part. You know, if you go in with the default of thinking people aren't going to accept you, that you need to hide who you are, then you're going to be uncomfortable the whole time. And that's what I did with United Way. So if I view the world through the lens that people's nature is to accept other humans, then I feel that it's not anything wrong with me if they don't accept it. It's something wrong with them, and that I don't need that person in my life. If we're coworkers, then we interact on a professional level, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, and I'd say the other part that I've done, and probably not the healthiest advice, is that I've overcompensated probably with just trying to be good at my job, working harder, going back to school, getting, you know, more education, working extra hours, making sure my work is perfect, to give nobody any opportunity to criticize my work. And that way, if they have a problem with me, it's on a personal note. And again, that's their problem.
Yep. Yep. Katie?
That's the truth. Yeah. I guess the only things that I can think to add, we already kind of talked about community and just like researching, but just to prepare myself, especially, well, even now, but especially when I was younger, just really researching places that I was applying to and seeing if they would actually be a good fit for me, seeing if there was some indication that it felt like a safe space for me. And that can be, in a variety of ways for a variety of identities. But even if a place isn't perfect, nowhere really is perfect. Even if you can find an ally in there somewhere, that can help build that confidence. Like Austin, you and I were talking about Peak and finding each other and finding our community and NCTC. So yeah, it's a balance between not writing a place off before you know it, but also making sure you're taking care of yourself, and being safe.
For sure. Wonderful. We are at our hour mark. So I will let Liz go ahead and add our Mixer link over into the chat. If anyone would like to head over to our WebEx group, where we will be having a mixer with our wonderful panelists. Thank you all so very, very much for sharing your experiences and sharing your professional expertise within your careers. And last but certainly not least, I just want to let everyone in the NCTC community know, especially those within the LGBTQ plus community, we see you, we hear you, where there are resources in abundance for anyone and everyone that's wanting to learn about or be involved in the LGBTQ plus community here at NCTC. You definitely have a place here, and here are shining examples of the ways in which you all can succeed within your own personal lives. Thank you all for tuning in, and go ahead and join us over in the mixer if you so choose. We hope to see you there.